My name is Gino Rivera, the Frank Sinatra of the Spanish Mafia, the Puerto Rican Pitbull, Mr. 205 Live, and you're listening to Stu's Wrestling Podcast.
You're listening to Stu's Wrestling Podcast. It's time for British Wrestling's sharpshooter, your host, Stu Harmer.
I just got this feeling.
A warm welcome, it's episode 59 of Stu's Wrestling Podcast. My guest today is coming all the way from Baltimore, Maryland. It is Mr. Brian Hardy. Brian has worked lots of extra spots for WWE over the years. He's been in the ring with Ryback, he's been in the ring with the Viking Raiders too. You'll get to hear about the etiquette backstage, all the stuff that us as fans don't really know about, but we hear off the wrestlers. Brian is a musician as well. You can find him at Brian Hardy across all social media, across all streaming apps too. So it was nice to come off the topic of wrestling for a bit and talk about his music career. He's a family man too. I've got a lot of respect for Brian. So here we are, without further ado, episode 59 with Mr. Brian Hardy. Enjoy. My guest, all the way from Baltimore, Maryland, is none other than Mr. Brian Hardy. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How are you doing today? Thank you.
We finally got it done, Brian.
We got it, man. Let's do this. Ready to have some fun today.
Just to be current, before I get into wrestling, music, and all the topics I want to speak about, how has the pandemic been for you in Baltimore, for you and the family?
Man, it's crazy. I can't honestly believe that the year is already almost up. You know, like I keep thinking about it. I'm like, we're going to be in November in just a couple of days. And this has been going on since March. So like no independent shows, no, for music and wrestling. A lot of time spent around the house, which has given me the opportunity for one of my biggest passions ever, which is action figure collecting. And so I've had a lot of downtime taking care of my kids and, hanging out with my wife and all that good stuff. So it's not too bad because, it's all the things that I like to do in the house, but I'm not used to the whole mask thing, and I'm not used to not being able to shake hands with people and stuff. It really means a lot to do that kind of stuff. And when I'm not able to, it's kind of like, eh.
Which figures have you got your hands on?
Oh, man. I got a little of everything, to be honest with you. I know you're probably going to ask about my my wrestling album in a little bit and stuff like that, but there's a song on my album called Action Figures, and it talks about my love for all the different wrestling figures, Remcos and Hasbros, and I'm into like collecting like rare Japanese and Mexican wrestling figures and all this kind of stuff. So it's just crazy, man. I've always got my hand in a little of everything. I love the AWA Remcos for sure. They are like my favorite, along with the ECW line, the OSFTM line. So yeah.
Did you watch The Toys That Made Us on Netflix?
I did.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Now we're talking.
I loved it. I think there was a lot of insight that people didn't know about, like the owners of OSFTM and Jakks Pacific and stuff. So that was cool.
Which figure do you want that's eluded you? There's got to be a piece, Brian, that you need, that you really, really want. You want to get your hands on it. Go on, hit me with it, man.
I'd probably say Nord the Barbarian AWA Remco figure from 85, or I don't know. I just acquired the Rob Van Dam in a red singlet for the ECW line, which was hard because you could only get it with the box, with the ring and the cage and stuff like that. So after about probably 20 years of hunting for it since it came out, I finally have one now.
How much?
To be honest, it wasn't too pricey, but it was because I bought it with an entire lot. So, when you break down the price of it, it's not too bad. But I did see one the other day going on eBay for $249. So,
worth a bit, that is. Right, to you now, and it was the origins of your career, so training, wrestling. How did it begin for you, the school you went to? Yeah, building yourself up back in the day, man.
Absolutely. So when I was about, probably about 2 or 3 years old, my earliest memories of pro wrestling was, I always say my first memory of pro wrestling was sitting on my great-grandfather's lap watching the Ultimate Warrior run down the aisle. And I was like, it stuck out in my mind since I was a kid. But I can remember being a little kid and my mom picking me up and putting me on the waterbed. And she's like, "We're going to watch Daddy on TV tonight." And I'm like, "What?" And I didn't grasp the concept that like my dad was a professional wrestler. So watching, my dad and Gilbert against like the Steiner brothers and different people like that on TV each week, the Head Shrinkers and stuff, was very eye-opening because I was like, whoa, this guy's like my dad. And I never had the best, family life. It's been a broken family life over the years, but it was cool to know that like my mom would say, yeah, that guy's your dad. That guy's your dad. And he'd be on TV every week. So it was like I understood why he couldn't be at home because he was on the road doing that and making a living and stuff. But that was my earliest memories of wrestling, which led me to just being obsessed with it. Action figures, magazines, you name it. Over the years, I was just absolutely captivated by anything pro wrestling. I mean, if I walked through the grocery store and I saw a sticker, I wanted it just because it was wrestling. I backyard wrestled like everybody. I was really into the idea of like, I got to do this when I'm older. And all of my friends in the neighborhood, they all went on to be like electricians and contractors and all this other stuff. And at 18, as soon as I graduated from high school, I had already had one kid with my wife and another one on the way. And I said, I think I'm going to give this pro wrestling thing a shot. So I worked a day job like anybody else does. And I started going to a wrestling school in Middle River, Maryland, which is about 30 minutes away from where I live right now. And basically I was paying money and I was on like a payment plan. And the guys were just like literally taking me there and beating the crap out of me. Now, it wasn't like, in my eyes, it wasn't even like a paying dues. Like if they wanted to beat me up really bad and stuff, that's fine. Like initiation type thing. But they kind of were just taking my money from me and not teaching me anything. And I always say, like, when you're looking for a pro wrestling school, I'll probably repeat this later on. When you're looking for a pro wrestling school, go somewhere credible, because at the end of the day, and I know a million people say this all the time, but like you're going to find a bunch of people that are just going to want to take money from you and can't promise you anything. They can't promise you a wrestling license, an education in pro wrestling, any of that kind of stuff. So it's like they were just looking for quick cash from me. So I left there and I went home. I was all bummed out. I was ready to quit. And I told my grandmother, I said, I can't do it. I can't do this wrestling thing and stuff. And she said, well, what do you think you need to do to like really become a good wrestler? I said, I need a ring. I need a ring at my disposal all the time. So my grandmother had went in half with me and we bought a wrestling ring, and I had a wrestling ring in the backyard. So it was like, I'd wake up every day and just go outside and just start training. And like, I would tell people, they would laugh because I wasn't sure whether they thought that I was just joking them or not, but they would ask like, what was your childhood like? And I was like, I remember being a little kid too, and there being a wrestling ring in my basement because my dad used to train with guys like Dwayne. He trained Gilbert, Axel Rotten, different guys like that. Like he had so many different hands on so many different guys, and that big ring in my basement as a kid. So it was I've always kind of had a wrestling ring or a trampoline or something around too as a child. So that was pretty much it. And I ended up debuting at 19 years old. I was a referee when I was 18 for a couple independent promotions. And then at 19, I had my first pro match, and I'm 30 years old now and still going strong with it.
Who was the first match with, man?
I was in Buffalo, New York, which is crazy because I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. So I drove 8.5 hours up to Buffalo for my first match. It was myself and my dad against two different teams. It was a tag gauntlet. And I don't remember the first team's name. I'm spacing on it really bad, but I know that one of the guys in that tag team ended up being a lawyer for like a Vince McMahon segment or something on Monday Night Raw a few years back. And then there was another tag team that was really good. They were called the Amanon Boys. And they were just absolutely fantastic, high flyers and stuff like that. And had my first match against those guys. We beat the first team, and then the second team, the Amanda Boys that came out, I ended up getting powder to the face and taking the pin from the guy. So it was cool, man. It was fun. 19 years old, traveling with my dad, scared out of my mind, dude. Sold out building, for an indie show up there. It was like almost, I don't know, 600-700 people or something. So
that's good.
It was a big deal.
That's good going, man. Good numbers for an indie show, absolutely. So how about crafting your moveset? How was that? How did you find that in the early days? What moves were you hitting?
So I was a diehard fan, and to go back real fast on the training. So my dad had actually come down from Florida, and when I bought the ring with my grandmother, my dad came down from Florida where he was living at. He still is there at the moment. He was training me, so I was trained by my dad. And then Axel Rotten was coming over almost every single week. And I also had Patrick Brink from, at the time, he was in FCW. He was a former FCW talent. He had just been released. He was coming over to work with me. I had all these different hands. Like when I was younger, people always say like, who are you trained by? And I'm like, I can't just say that I was trained by one person, because I've worked with so many different people over the years that have helped me, that it's like, I could pick a little bit from Carlito. I could pick a little bit from Charlie Haas, and all these different people that had made me who I am today. So, and I mean, as far as like cutting promos, Jim Cornette and stuff like that, like had tryouts with all three, major promotions, TNA, Ring of Honor, and WWE. So I've been able to, fortunate enough to be blessed with that. But back to the moveset, honestly, I would say when I was training with Axel the most, he would always say, you're skinny, you need to pick up a little bit of weight, but you remind me of a young Tom Billington, the Dynamite Kid. So I was obsessed with the Dynamite Kid, and I watched Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask matches. I'd watch matches with Bret Hart and Dynamite Kid. I mean, and the list goes on and on and on. I loved Davey Richards. I loved Chris Benoit. I loved all those guys that were just like tiny little dudes, 5'7", 5'8", but could just go fast as lightning, and I paid tribute to them with my early tights in the business, because I'd wear the lightning bolts down the side of the tights like they would and stuff like that. And I would use all the stuff, man, the flying headbutt, the tombstone, the super kick, all these different things that for a little guy worked for me.
I want to scoot forward. Now, you've had many bookings for WWE over the years. I saw you. How did that come to fruition, and how was it in terms of backstage etiquette? Guys you met, obviously you'd seen on TV and you respected. Yeah, just your experiences with WWE, because I know you've been with the WWE in
absolutely
many different capacities over the years.
Absolutely. So grateful. I tell everybody, time and time again, I don't really have anything terrible to say about them, because they gave me so many opportunities again and again. Professional wrestling owes you nothing. I tell people that all the time. Pro wrestling owes you nothing. If anything, you owe it. I've been able to feed my family off of it and pay my bills for a long time, and I'm super grateful for it. It doesn't last forever, so they say save your money, and stuff like that. But the first time that I went to WWE, I was 21. So I was in the business for a couple of years, doing the independents nonstop. And my independent career was nuts, man. I was wrestling guys that most people at the time had dreamed about, and I had dreamed about. I mean, like, I was wrestling different guys like Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Nature Boy Buddy Landell, Jerry the King Lawler, Hexall Jim Duggan. Like, the list goes on and on. So it was like I was building quite a reputation for myself on the independent scene, which I think had got me seen. At least I think so. I had said, I think the biggest match that defined my independent career, and still to this day, my favorite independent match ever, me against Jerry Lawler. And I think that's what opened the door for WWE for me. People say, do you think your dad got you there? Do you think this or that? And I say, no, to be honest with you, I think the Jerry Lawler match got me there, because so many people had talked to me about it, and there was just such a buzz on the independents at the time. And that was back in 2012, right before I popped up on WWE for the first time. So I was standing at my day job, and I got a call, and it was one of the chicks, Amanda from Talent Relations, and she called me on the phone, and she said, William Regal wants to have a tryout with you on, I think at the time it was like June 18th, 2012 or something. I still remember the date, at the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, New York. And I said, dang, well, Nassau to me was cool anyway, because part of WrestleMania 2 took place there. So I was freaking out. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I get to go to a building that has so much history and this and that. So I got booked for that, and then I got booked the next night for Baltimore in my hometown here at the Baltimore Arena. And I mean, that was crazy. I'll get into that in a second. But the day I went for the first tryout, Regal had nothing but great things to say to me. And he was just so positive and such a nice guy. And like, he's very straightforward, like he'll tell you, if you suck, you suck, like, and if you're doing good, he'll tell you you're doing good and what you can work on and stuff like that. But he was just so positive and such, just a good light on that day, that I left there thinking, okay, now they messed with me the first day. The behind the scenes stuff, they messed with me the first day, because that night I was actually supposed to have my first WWE match, which a lot of people don't know. I was going to wrestle Dean Ambrose that night. So Dean Ambrose was fresh into WWE at the time, and he was still wearing trunks and everything like that, fresh out of CZW right to WWE. And he was doing the dark matches every night, and they had a pay-per-view the night before, and then they were in Long Island for Raw. We're in the extra locker room, which half the size of a broom closet, and you got 8 or 10 guys shoved in one room like sardines, like trying to pull their gear on and stuff. And at WWE, they have a rule, which is you rather have to be in a suit and tie at all times, or you have to be in your wrestling gear if you're needed for something. So they said to me, they're like, Hardy. And I'm like, yep. And at the time, this was Mark Carano, who was in charge of all this stuff at the time, and which some people may have seen him on Total Divas and stuff like that. So Mark Carano says, Hardy, you're dark tonight. And I'm like, oh, great. And I'm like, all gearing up and wrist tape and everything like that. They come back 5 minutes later and they're like, Hardy, you're not dark tonight. Rodriguez, you're dark tonight. And literally the guy sitting across from me is like, yes. And he like grabs his gear and puts it on and everything. And then they're like, get back in your suit. So I get back in my suit. Then they come back 5 minutes later and they're like, Hardy, you're dark tonight. Rodriguez, you're not dark tonight. And they did this like 3 or 4 times where literally they had me get dressed. And then I think by like the 3rd time I was like, dude, I'm just pulling my dress clothes up over my gear. Like I'm tired of getting dressed. So I think that was because I was new and they were just trying to mess with me and see how much they could punk me out or whatever. But either way, the other guy did end up getting the match that night, and I was pretty bummed out. And then Arn Anderson had come to me the next day, and we were in Baltimore, and he said, I was talking to Ryback, and Ryback wants to work with you tonight. And he was like, so we're going to do you. And they had like 3 or 4 other guys out there that they were trying to get to find out who they were going to do the 2-on-1 against. They were trying to do the 3-on-1, but Ryback, the placement, he's so strong. It's not that he couldn't lift guys, but like it's hard to like stick your hand through a guy's leg and then another guy's leg, and like so they couldn't do Feed Me 3. They wanted to do Feed Me 3 and they just couldn't make it happen. So it's Feed Me 2. So I felt really bad because I had a buddy from Allentown and another one that had drove like probably 4 or 5 hours, and I was really hoping that they would have got the spot. But they unfortunately didn't that night. And Black G's, who was Sabian and CZW, got the spot. And that was really cool. He was easy to work with and stuff like that, too. So it was me and him against Ryback. That was my first WWE match. And a lot of people say the Ryback's unsafe and stuff like that. And I can't say that. He was just nothing but an absolute pleasure to work with. He took care of me. And the only thing, if you watch the match back, that was like even a little bad in the match was he picked Sabian up and threw him on top of me. And when he did, I felt like my ribs had broke, but they didn't. But besides that, the rest of the match went really smooth. Mike Chioda got to referee my first match. Yeah. That was a big deal for me because I was just a diehard WWF fan as a kid. So I'm like, Mike Chioda is refereeing my first WWE match. Like William Regal, was having the tryout with me. Mike Chioda ref my first match, and Arn Anderson was the producer for my first match with Ryback. So I'm like, this is like, talk about the caliber of talent, that is right there in that little set alone. So
how was it seeing the guys in that environment the first time? How did you find it?
I always describe the catering area as high school all over again. So you pick up your tray or your plate or whatever, and over the years it's gotten easier because now people are starting to recognize my face, and they're a lot more accepting of me, I guess to say. But when I first would go there, like the first couple times, it's like, you take your plate and you walk into the catering and you're just kind of looking around like the new kid in school, like, who can I sit with? Oh, there's John Cena and somebody else, and here's Great Khali, and no, I don't want to make anybody mad. Like, who can I sit with? And then, like they have a table of extras. So like most of the time, if you see the extra sitting there, don't be an idiot to it. Go there and sit with the extras. But I have seen guys literally try to like squeeze in between 3 or 4, stars before. I've seen a guy that's been absolutely ignorant to Shane McMahon, who Shane has asked for the guy's seat before, and the guy was like, no, find your own seat. Like, and he was like kidding, but Shane wasn't. Shane's like, I want to sit down and eat, so it's high school, definitely, for sure. And it's very intimidating. But like I said, over the years, I've learned to just be very respectful. If I see a signed contracted talent that needs to sit down, I offer my seat right away and get up if there's no seats available. And if, whatever the case may be, I keep to myself. I stay, very low profile, and that's the best way to be respectful. And who knows, eventually one day maybe it will pay off as a full-time deal.
You've been a security member before now, haven't you?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? Obviously, coming away from getting in the ring and being a member of security on screen.
Absolutely. So there was a few different times. What's crazy was last year, right around WrestleMania. I don't know if you remember seeing the day that it was a Monday Night Raw episode where Charlotte and Ronda Rousey were fighting in the back of a car and kicked the window out.
Yeah.
Initially that day, I was scheduled to be a security guy, like a DC police officer or whatever, and they had all the guys in the ring and stuff. I kind of bypassed that, which was like pretty crazy, and I don't even know why they didn't have me do it. It was just a bunch of different stuff going on that day. WrestleMania weekend is totally nuts there anyway. Like, it's crazy. People don't have time for anything during WrestleMania week because it's just everybody's going a million miles a minute. So I was told I was going to do something on Raw that day. The next night at SmackDown, I showed up and they said, Adam Pearce walked over to me. Adam Pearce is like the nicest guy in the world. And I really look up to him. NWA heavyweight champion, all that kind of stuff. So he's a producer and he's getting a lot of TV time with WWE at the moment right now, which I love. I love seeing. I just think Pearce is such a great guy. And to me, it meant a lot because I was like, I don't really want to do a security spot. I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking that. I'm not going to pass up an opportunity to get my face on TV for a few minutes. But I'm like, I kind of don't want to do the security spot. Pearce is like, Hardy, can you take a knee to the face from Buddy Murphy tonight? And I'm like, absolutely, let's do it. So I had went and got dressed in the security outfit they gave me and stuff like that. And he's like telling me like over and over again, now I want you to bump this way. I want you to sell, and I was just like, oh God, I don't want to let down Adam Pearce. Like, whatever I do, I don't want to let him down because I really want to make this look good. I want to make it look good for Murphy and Nice, who were having a feud on 205 at the time for the Cruiserweight title. And I'm like, all right. So on the episode of 205 Live from April 2nd, 2019, they're struggling, they're fighting. All security guards come out and try to break him up, and I grab Tony Nese, and I've got him by the arms and stuff, and all of a sudden he moves out of the way, and Buddy Murphy comes running, hits me, boom, right with the knee, and it looked like an explosion. Everyone said, it looked like he took your face off, and it was so cool because that was probably the second biggest time that I've gotten like high regards from everybody in the back. When I came walking through the back curtain, everybody was standing there clapping, and literally Pearce had grabbed me and gave me a hug. And it was awesome because like I felt like, man, for a second, I was just as important as the two guys that are in this focal point for this Cruiserweight title because they were so impressed with the fact that it looked like my head exploded when he, gave me this knee and I bumped perfectly on the stage. And to bump on a stage, man, comparison to bumping in a ring is like, that stuff hurts bad, because you're hitting, really hard on that stage. So there's no padding or anything like that. So it was very, very cool, very humbling. And the fact that Adam Pearce was in that segment with me was even cooler because then the next day on YouTube and WWE.com and stuff, there was like a picture of Pearce like trying to break everybody up. And I'm like in the picture with him. I'm like, that was awesome.
Adam Pearce, funnily enough, every week without fail on Facebook, you can ask a question.
Q&A, yeah.
But he always questions my question after I've asked it. I love it. There's always an add-on. He does it every week. I was asking about Wilson from the Seahawks. Like, is he the best quarterback in your opinion? And he always questions my question, and then we have a little bit of back and forth every week. It's good fun, and as you say, it's good to see him on TV every week in the role. It's brilliant.
Great guy.
He held that NWA title, high esteem when he was champ. So that was cool, man. That was cool. I want to segue into music now. I'm going to come away from wrestling. I just want to speak to you about your music career. I know that's quite broad, but if you can just give us some stuff about the music career, man.
Absolutely. When I was 10 years old, I wanted to be a pro wrestler so bad, and I found out someone told me that I couldn't get a pro wrestling license until the time I was 18. So I was like, man, I got 8 years to kill. What am I going to do? So that year I'd asked my grandparents, who basically raised me, I asked my grandparents for a guitar for Christmas, and they got me my first guitar. And a year later, I mean, I spent a year in the bedroom just plunking at a string and all that kind of stuff. And a year later, I had ended up playing there was a venue around this area called Woods, which a lot of kids knew of. They're like, "You're playing in the Woods?" Like, and I'm like, no, like it's a building, like Woods, like it's cool. But it was like the most popular like music venue. It was an old beaten up, broken down church that they turned into like a punk rock / alternative like music nightclub every Friday night. And we played there consecutively with my first band, the Midfields. We played there for probably about, I don't know, I can't even begin to think. It was almost every Friday night for a year straight. And we were like the house band there, basically. There would be other touring bands that would come in and we'd open for them. And then over the years, I had kept playing with that band. And then things kind of like went sour in 2012-ish, 2013. So about the same time that I was really starting to like wrestle with WWE and do different stuff. And I was like, if I return back to music, I was going to be done. I was just going to concentrate on wrestling. But I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it my own way on my own terms. And I'm going to go with a solo career. So I literally became a solo artist. I started playing acoustic guitar, and everywhere I went, I would just do solo shows. And 2013 just took off. And then now we're in 2020. I am 3 full-length albums in. I'm 2 EPs in. And it's crazy. I couldn't be more thankful. I've made more money with a guitar than I ever should have in my life. Like, I felt like I cheated the music system completely, where I'm like, yeah, I hear about all these guys that literally have like this drive and determination to want to be big in the music industry and stuff like that. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with being big. It has to do with being a businessman and being smart. You know, you could be the tiniest musician that nobody's ever heard of, but as long as you're a smart businessman, you can still make your money, you know, like, so there are people out there that are so well and popularly known and everything like that with a huge following, and they don't make jack. They don't make any money or anything like that. But then there are people like me that some people know, some people don't, but I've made a good career off of it.
That's cool, man. I bet it's hurting you at the moment, though, not being able to tour with the music and the wrestling. It's like a rock and a hard place for you. Both the things you like to do, and you can't get out in that live capacity.
Absolutely.
How's that for you? Sorry, I jumped in then.
No, you're fine. It's the worst. Yeah, like I said, it's cool to be home and hang out with the kids and all that stuff, and not have to worry about packing my bags and going to a certain city for the week or the weekend or whatever. But I miss it, man. And I miss the warm weather. I love Los Angeles. I'm out there almost every year playing shows, and I do radio station appearances and stuff. And that's actually where I plan on moving here in the next year or so. And I just love California, and to not be out there on the West Coast where music is always happening and stuff like that, it sucks right now. But it's just too dangerous. You know, it's too dangerous at the moment with the pandemic to get on an airplane and do all this crazy traveling and stuff like that. So eventually I hope to return to it. Hopefully things will be as normal as they can be in the next, couple of months. And hopefully 2021 is way better than 2020.
Who was some of your inspirations getting into music? Who did you love listening to? Who did you like listening to?
As a kid, I always tell people like my first memory of music, kind of like how I had my Ultimate Warrior memory as wrestling. My first memory of music was I remember having a Red Hot Chili Peppers Blood Sugar Sex Magic tape. I had a Nirvana Nevermind tape, and I had a Green Day Dookie tape. Those were like my first 3 cassette tapes that I ever remember having. And I had a Vanilla Ice Baby tape.
No. Brian.
So it was, did that just kill my credibility?
No, because you've done well, so it's fine. You're still credible, but I wouldn't have said you would have been Vanilla Ice.
It's very eclectic. And, but I really took a liking when I was about 10 years old to punk rock. I really started finding Ramones and The Clash and the Sex Pistols and Rancid and MXPX and all these different bands I was really, really into. And then later on down the line, I started finding out about bands like the Queers and Teenage Bottle Rocket and Screeching Weasel and the Ataris. And the list just went on and on. I was like a diehard punker. And then now in my older age, what I like to call my older age, my wife has turned me on to country music a little bit. So I'm like I don't know. It's like I'll always be a punk rock guy my whole life, but then I love like old country western stuff like Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard, stuff like that. And then I love like rockabilly in between. I love like 1950s rock and roll. I love Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, Elvis Presley, and the list goes on. Eddie Cochran. Like there's just so many good artists. So I keep my music ranges kind of open. There's not very much that I won't give a chance to. There are some things I turn on and I'll just turn right back off. Like I can't do this. I can't listen to this. But I try to be open-minded about everything going into it.
Creative process, making the albums. How long has it taken you from album to album to put them together? I want to ask that. That's something I like to ask.
Yeah, it's different. I would definitely say that it's a lot harder to make an album than it is to run a wrestling show. So I was a wrestling promoter for years as well as a pro wrestler, and it's a different process. It's kind of one and the same, but it's a different process because with running a wrestling show, you gotta book the talent and you gotta pay for the venues and pay for the security deposits and the ring rentals and all this different stuff. And then like with album, it's like lock me in a room for 2 weeks every single night. Don't talk to me for hours upon hours. I'll sit there and write lyrics. I will take a guitar and just create what I possibly can, bring to life that sounds good. There's been times where I've written probably about 10 to 13 songs at a time and crumbled each one up and gone, nah, it's not good enough to release. Very particular, very picky about it. But I literally I've over the years been grateful enough to kind of piece stuff together. Okay, this is good. This is horrible. I like this. I don't want to do that. And then I go in and I track everything. And I track everything by myself. So I track the drums, and then I track the bass, and then I track the guitars, and then the vocals. And it's literally like every single thing. I'll just spend weeks, and I produce all my own stuff. I never work with a producer. So I'm literally like, I know if something doesn't belong where it doesn't belong, take it right out and make it work. And I'll record something and then come back to it 4 weeks later and fix that one thing that I knew in my head over and over again. Like, you can't release a CD until that's fixed. So very, very particular. It's very crazy. But at the same time too, it's like, when something is good and when something isn't. So if you don't think it's good, don't release it, and there's been plenty of times where I don't do, what I should, and screw it, it's recorded, release it. No, I'm not releasing it. Like, I want it to be good. I want it to be perfect for the people. And music is everlasting. So it's like years from now, I'll be gone, I'll be dead. I won't be on this earth anymore. And my music will still be around for generations and generations to listen to. So hopefully, as well as my wrestling matches, hopefully people dig through the vault and find some stuff on me, because I love watching old wrestling stuff from Florida and different old territories, Minnesota and Calgary and all these different places where I'm like, these are matches that, thank God, to the WWE network now we can see. But, back then, nobody even knew that some of these matches existed.
Good insight there on the music and the wrestling. Absolutely. What are some of your favourite albums of all time?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot with this one.
just a few. You don't have to I'm sure there's many.
Yeah.
But...
right off the top of my head, I would say probably Stray Cats, Built for Speed, Beach Boys, Surfer Girl, Elvis Presley, the first album, the self-titled album, and off the top of my head, Ramones' Road to Ruin is a great record. So those are just four that I can think of right off the top of my head, great albums by great artists.
Favorite MXPX song? I'm going to ask you that.
Oh, My Life Story, for sure.
Tune.
Yep. Great song. But I mean, there's a lot of different stuff I listen to. My son's got one of their songs on repeat right now in the Tony Hawk game. I can't remember what the track is on there, but I'm spacing on it. But literally every day, it's like my son has Superman by Goldfinger and the MXPX tune and something else playing, and he's just like, Dad, come play Tony Hawk with me.
Responsibility's my favorite song, but
yep.
I like it live. I like the live version. I don't know what it is. I like the song in its original format, but I think it's even better live when they released the live album in 2015.
Heck yeah. I don't want to think about it. We keep better off without it. I don't want to think about it.
There you go. That was good, man. That was good. So, yeah. I think you've encapsulated a lot of music you taste there. That's cool. That's cool.
Absolutely.
Right, back to wrestling now, Brian. What's some of your favourite matches of all time?
I would have to say for sure that Brett and Davey at SummerSlam 92 is up there.
I was there.
You were there?
I was there, mate. Yes.
Oh, you're giving me chills right now, man.
6 years old with my with dad. So we travelled from North Wales down to London, which is about 4.5 hours, 5 hours. I know you guys do crazy distances over there, but 4.5, 5 hours to us is a hell of a distance. But yeah, 6 years old, man. 6 years old, so, Wembley.
I have to ask you, what was when you were there, what was the crowd like?
Unbelievable. On previous episodes that I've spoken about it, when the guys have asked me, it was the split between Bulldog and Brett. You would have thought the majority of that 80,000 people would have been with Bulldog. I wanted Brett to win. Brett's still my favorite. Absolutely, absolutely, man. He's still the greatest of all time in my mind. I know it splits opinion. He's the greatest. He's the greatest, like, in my mind.
I love Brett. Best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. So, for sure. So,
to be fair, Lennox Lewis coming out with the Union Jack. With Bulldog, that was a poignant moment,
Yeah, that's a big deal. Besides that, I mean, I'd say that's probably in my top 5. People ask me this all the time, and I'm like, gosh, there's just too many companies. Like, it's hard to decide, but like, that's probably one of my favorite WWF matches. ECW, I'm a mix because there was a match, and I'm a huge Bret Hart fan too. So like, there was a match from WrestleFest 97, which was a co-WWF and ECW event. Yeah. And Terry Funk and Bret Hart wrestled each other in the main event. And I love that match too. And I find that a lot of my favorite matches have Bret in it. So that's saying something right there. Like, he literally is one of the best ring technicians of all time. But yeah, and then I like independent stuff too. I thought the feud that Colt Cabana and Adam Pearce had was fantastic. I was a huge Ric Flair fan back in the day. Guys like Wildfire Tommy Rich and stuff like that when he had his short reign as the NWA champion. And I just pull so many different matches. For another big one for me is right here at the Baltimore Civic Center about 30 years before I was born was Bruno Sammartino versus Superstar Billy Graham. And there was the title change that night. And I love old school wrestling. I really do.
That's cool, man. It's just, I know that's hard to encapsulate because there's so many. It's like when people ask me to do a Mount Rushmore, I can't do it. I said this.
I can't.
when I had TJ Wilson, Tyson Kidd on for earlier in the year, and he agreed. He said we could have a top 50, me and you, couldn't we? I was like, yeah, we could have I could have a top 50 of guys. It's just.
I agree.
So
there's just too many great talents, which is crazy because that's that old generation. I'm not saying that there isn't great talent out there today, but in comparison to what it was back then, man, I've just got too many favorites that I have a hard time choosing. I can name off a million different guys for a million different reasons, and I just love pro wrestling.
Bret Hart and Piper is one of mine, because
WrestleMania 8
to tell a story from the promos in the back, and then is Piper going to go back heel? And they're teasing it, and they're telling the story, and it's like a 12-minute match, and they get everything in, and it's perfectly done. From a fan standpoint, I know you're a wrestler. From a fan standpoint, incredible. It always had the hairs on my arms on end. It did. When they embracing at the end.
Yes.
Playing with your emotions. That's probably one of the first matches that really played with my emotions. As a youngster.
Yep. 2 great Intercontinental champions.
What about current wrestling, Brian? What your thoughts on the current product?
Well, I honestly don't like to sound like an old man about it, but it's not what it used to be. There are some very talented guys, and I'm sure that people watch me and they go, "Oh, he's not that great either," or whatever. I mean, today's product is just completely different. There are so many talented individuals out there, but it's not what it used to be when I was a kid. I love like anything from 1950 up to, 1999, I'm all about it, and after that, the last 20 years have kind of been like, I mean, there's things I like about it, certain moments in Ruthless Aggression era, and I loved TNA in like 2005, 2006, and then now I am an ultimate fan of AEW, so I will put AEW up top there. If that never gets me hired at WWE, then I'm really sorry, and I just blew my opportunity right here on Stu's Wrestling Podcast.
We'll cut it. I'll get Chris to cut it before Friday. It'll be all right.
But I love AEW, the product at the moment. I just am a diehard AEW fan. I watch it every single week. I don't miss a single episode. I'm glued to the screen. I'm not that same way invested in WWE or NXT at the moment. Although I can say that I love Walter. So.
You're not the only American to say this.
He's fantastic. He reminds me of a
sorry.
Like he reminds me of a version of like Mike Awesome. I know that sounds crazy. Do you see the comparison?
The build, the aura, yeah. He doesn't need to say very much. I don't think, because he does it in the ring. But this feud with Ilya Dragunov, they've been at each other in progress in WXW in Germany, but it's been perfectly done. I'd say NXT UK has been brilliant since it's been back on the air. I've been very impressed.
It's good, and that's Walter's great, and I'm trying to think of guys on like the Raw or SmackDown roster that I really think are amazing. I mean, AJ Styles and Randy Orton, no matter what, they both will always be great in my eyes. I love AJ Styles. I got to do the 2016 Backlash segment with AJ where he walks up to me and you're destined for failure and stuff. And as soon as that camera cut, he turned and looked at me and he said, "Let me tell you something right now." He goes, "Don't listen to anything AJ Styles just said to you." He said, "You're not destined for failure." He said, "Go on to do big things in this business." He was such a down to earth guy, just such a great guy. So
he's better as a heel, I think. I know he can be the superhero, but he does the heel. His heel work has gone from strength to strength, I think, especially since he came over from TNA in New Japan.
Yeah. So. Yeah, when he pops up on a screen, it doesn't matter what he's doing, whether he's a babyface or a heel, or whether he's on Raw or SmackDown. I'm watching. So,
in terms of AEW, because I know you're very fond of it, which guys are giving you the appetite to watch week in, week out?
So it might be unpopular at the moment, but because a lot of people, crap on them, but I love the Young Bucks, to be honest. I think those guys are fantastic. I really like MJF as a heel. I think he just literally, the guy oozes charisma and he's great. I think Jericho has reinvented himself so many times that he's just always going to be like, I think Jericho is today's version of Hulk Hogan. Like, he's just so good, and he's money, he's money on the microphone. He's money in the ring. It doesn't matter what he looks like, long hair, short hair, gained a little bit of weight or 6-pack abs or whatever. Like, he is just absolutely fantastic. And I don't know, man, that whole roster is just good.
I'm a big fan of Adam Page, but I was a big fan of Adam Page through New Japan and Ring of Honor. Why they never put the belt on him, the TV title especially. He came so close so many times, but it's good to see him showcased at the top end of the card.
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of him, Brian. I think
he reminds me a lot of Magnum TA.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I've never thought of it like that. No, that's absolutely, mate, on the money with that one.
He reminds me of Magnum, and I'm a huge Cody fan too. Like, I when I was younger, I was kind of a Cody fan, but I'm more of a Cody fan now ever since he wrestled Nick Aldis for the world title. That had, All In had really, set the bar, in my opinion. So I'm a huge Cody guy too.
We need Nick Aldis back on TV, man.
We do.
He needs to be doing it. He's absolutely brilliant. It's a throwback. It's like the 80s all over again with him, but fresh at the same time, isn't it?
He's so awesome. I mean, literally, talk about he's in my probably top 10 of today's talents for sure. He should have a contract wherever he wants to, and he should wrestle wherever he wants to and make as much money as he can for him and Mickey James and their kid.
It's been cool seeing Thunder Rosa on AEW. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
They brought her over. It's been use them. They've obviously got a good working relationship with Billy Corgan.
Yes.
Get all this on the show. It do no harm. It do no harm in my mind.
That's why I think this pandemic just needs to pass, because as soon as this pandemic passes, NWA Power, will hopefully be. It was so good, it was so good. I just went to a Ring of Honor show this year as a spectator, which I'm not even going to lie, I have not been to a wrestling show to sit there and watch in years. And I had to go because Nick Aldis was on the card in the main event with PCO and a couple other guys, and I said, I got to see this, man. I got to see this in person to say that I've watched it. So I went.
Can't get over just how good he is. I remember when he first came in TNA, man, and you wouldn't have expected him out of the guys they had. He's exceeded my expectations of how far he's gone. Absolutely, man. So yeah,
absolutely,
that was cool. Right, Brian, can you plug your social media, the music, the wrestling? I want the whole kit and caboodle, man.
Absolutely. So my my Instagram, my Facebook, and my TikTok are all at Brian Hardy Music. You can find, I post pictures of my wrestling collection on Facebook and Instagram at Brian's Wrestling Collection. And I also have a YouTube channel, which every week I do like figure reviews and stuff like that at Brian's Wrestling Collection. And I'm new. I'm not new to Facebook and Instagram, but I'm new to TikTok. So I'm just now starting to get it together. My 15-year-old daughter or 14-year-old daughter has over 3 million likes on TikTok, and she's got over 80,000 followers on TikTok. And I'm like, dude, you're 14. What's your secret? And she's like, I don't know, Dad. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's crazy. So I'm trying to get up there with what she's doing right now, but I'm way behind the times, dude. This Zoom call with you right now is new to me. Like this is the second time that I've done one. I did an interview last week for a show on YouTube called Fig Hub. And I literally, besides that, like I've never done a Zoom call besides that. So you're my second Zoom call. And my daughter, I said, I'm doing Stu's wrestling podcast. I said, I need help doing this Zoom thing. What do I do? And she's like, did he give you a code? I'll type it in and whatever. And I'm like, gosh, I'm so old for 30, man. Like,
that's cool, man. That's cool. Zoom's the best.
Yeah.
Skype quality's not as good. So I've stuck with Zoom, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. It's easy and it seems cool. So,
Mr. Brian Hardy, musician and wrestler. What a pleasure, man. Just glad we've got it done.
Thank you, man. I'm appreciative for the time. And like I said, it's crazy because we're on like opposite sides of the world, but it's all good.
Technology does work sometimes.
Most definitely. Well, thanks so much for having me on, man. I appreciate you.
Flying the flag for the UK from rugby, this is Evade Escape with their single Already Know.
This episode is brought to you in association with Powered 4 TV, so go and check them out for anything wrestling related, old events, new events when we come out of COVID, podcasts, you name it, it's all there at Powered 4 TV, so find them across social media.